Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now I got rid of my Tesla Model 3 Performance and bought one of these. It's a 2013 BMW 530d F11 Touring, and here's why I think you need to go and buy one of these now. It's weird driving in silence as well. I'm not a fan of it. Gotta be honest, I've got to have some music or a podcast on. Left alone with your own thoughts is a frightening place to be. So we're out and about driving in the BMW, probably a good opportunity to tell you why I traded in a 50 grand Tesla for a 6 grand, 180,000 mile BMW F11 Touring, because it sounds like a mad idea on paper, but the Tesla's lease was coming to the end anyway, and it was costing a lot of money, like a grand a month to lease this thing. Along with the fact that when you're charging it on a supercharger, it's no cheaper really than doing a diesel fill up or a petrol fill up. Also, you're losing a lot of time as well. I do a lot of motorway miles for my job, so every time I went away and had to charge it, I would be losing maybe an hour each way, and that's fine during the day because you can sort of plan and factor that in if you've only got to get to one destination. But when you've got to get there and then drive around for the rest of the weekend and you can't charge until you're on your way home because you're working in a really remote location, it's quite inconvenient. And also when you're then heading home and you need to be back at 1 in the morning and you've got to charge for another half an hour, that's when it's quite annoying. I suppose the biggest thing for me though was I was away for my birthday and I went to a small little town up in the middle of the UK, and I realised that the infrastructure just in these remote places still isn't really there at the moment. And for me, for what I do, it just doesn't work right at this point. You know, if I was going around just driving to and from one location every day, a few miles from my home, it'd probably be a little bit different and I could get an EV and be quite happy with it. But because of the mileage that I'm doing, and when you're away at a remote location, that's when the downfall starts to happen. And I think there just needs to be a bit more infrastructure of an improvement before I could think about going back to an EV. There's nothing to say I don't like them. You know, the car in itself was brilliant. I loved my Tesla. You know, I could go to different destinations after a 3-hour drive and not feel tired at the end of it. It was really comfortable. I loved how quiet it is. I loved how I could watch Netflix on the go and so on. Not while I'm driving, obviously, when I'm charging, but it was great. And you know, I do genuinely miss it quite a lot because it was lovely to just get into. You don't have to worry about warming the engine up and all of those sorts of things. You can control the climate on your phone. So there were a lot of upsides to a Tesla, but in the real world, when it really mattered, there were quite a few downsides. And for me, especially with what was happening with Elon Musk at the time, he was going a bit mad. I thought, you know what, it's probably time to cut my losses, chop it in, get something that I own outright, and I'm not going to worry about the depreciation. And that's when this thing came up. Not a car that was particularly on my radar, but one that I held in quite high esteem. And I saw Taylor Hetherington, who you might know from Auto Alex and also runs TaylorMade Cars, was selling one. So I contacted him and said, can I get some more information on it? He sent me over some stuff. A week later, went to look at it, and I bought it straight away because though it's a high miler, 174,000 miles it had, it's now done nearly 177, and I've only had it a few months. It was one of those cars where I just thought, like, do you know what, this will do everything I need it to do. It's got a tow bar on the back, so it can tow 2,000 kilograms brakes or 850 kilograms unbrakes. It's a car that kind of does pretty much everything. It's pretty much perfect in that respect. So while we're driving around town, probably a good time to talk about the specs of this car. So we've got a 3-litre 6-cylinder diesel engine, the N57 lump, which if you talk to BMW people, they'll probably say, oh, that's the one where the timing chain's going to go, or the oil pump's going to fail, or both, and you're going to have major engine damage. But if it's well maintained and well serviced, you're generally okay. This has done 176,000 miles. I got a stack of paperwork about that thick with it. It's been well maintained throughout its life. It's not had a chain, it's not got any hint of the chain going. You generally hear a noise under the engine when you start it to hear that the tensioner and stuff, the chains may be a bit slack, but no such problems with this. Once that starts happening, I will replace it and I've got to factor it in. And in this car, it's a big job. It's an engine out job. So you're talking 1,600 quid, maybe 2 grand, depending on where you're going to get it done. So I can understand why people do get put off, but actually for me, it's been fine so far. When it needs doing, I'll do it, but not before. We've got 257 horsepower under the bonnet, rear-wheel drive, 540 newton meters of torque. So you're constantly riding this crest of a wave of low-down torque, which makes it pretty much perfect for one of the main reasons that I bought this car, which is towing. Those of you who've watched my channel for a while will know that I do a bit of rallycross with my dad, and I need to tow a race car to get there. Now, I had a van that I used before this, but the van was just sitting there for a lot of the year, not really filling its purpose. It was just losing money. And I didn't really see the point in having an asset there that was losing money, so I thought, well, why not combine the two and get a car that can tow? which is why this one is so perfect. I took my race car up to Lincolnshire a couple of weeks ago in this, and you genuinely wouldn't have known that there was anything on the back at all. It's such a smooth cruiser, especially with the 8-speed automatic gearbox. It's really good around town, this one. It's really good on the motorway, and it gets really good MPG, as you would expect as well, being an 8-speed box. You can generally get sort of 40, 45 to a gallon if you're not towing. Take 10 off of that if you are towing. Put it this way, if I do around town driving and a bit of motorway, maybe a couple hundred miles or so, I'll get about 600 miles from a tank, and it's a 70-litre tank. It costs about 80 quid to fill up, so you can't really ask for much more than that. And obviously the big bonus of it being a diesel is you can just go to a fuel station, you fill it up, 2 minutes later you're on the road, rather than sitting there and watching an episode of Game of Thrones while you're waiting for your car to be ready to drive again. So we're picking up a bit of speed now. We're driving on a 50-mile-an-hour road. We're sort of out of the town, and this is where the car begins to come to its own, because on a longer stretch of road, on a dual carriageway, it is absolutely brilliant. Around town, this car can feel quite big and quite heavy, because it is big. It's a 5-metre long car, 3-metre wheelbase, and while that's good for like long motorway driving, around town when you're trying to get around the double mini roundabout, it's perhaps not so brilliant. It does feel like a bit of a barge, to be completely honest with you. But get it onto a motorway, let it start to stretch its legs, and it feels absolutely fantastic. So this model, as I said, 530D, we've got a cream leather interior, we've got cruise control, reversing camera, parking sensors. I've got an upgraded module on this, so I've got Apple CarPlay as well, which just brings it into the modern age. It's amazing how a 300, 400, 500 quid module can make such a small difference, but also then a massive difference at the same time, because it makes a 10, 12-year-old car feel like it's in keeping with the modern age, you know, with all of the different mod cons that you've got on a car from 24, 25, to have something like that on a car from 2013 and it doesn't feel any older is brilliant. The only thing that this car doesn't have is a Harman Kardon sound system, which, to be honest, I was a bit miffed about when I got it, because I was like, I didn't really realise, because normally you have a speaker in the window there. You know, I've sort of gotten used to it now. It lacks a bit of bass low down, but if you can live without it, it's absolutely fine. Everything else it has, it's got the cruise control, it's got voice activation, you've got a speed limiter, dual zone climate control, heated seats, folding mirrors, all of that stuff. Lovely, can't go wrong. So we're doing some round town driving now, sort of stop start through traffic, and this is one of the things I'm not particularly fond of in this car, is the size of it. When you're sort of negotiating mini roundabouts and tight corners, this car does feel quite big. It can feel quite sort of cumbersome to drive around town. When you get it onto a motorway and a dual carriageway, it sort of doesn't really feel any different to any other car, but you do notice the size and the width, especially on country lanes. Some other things that I'm not particularly fond of in this car also include the lack of storage space in the car. In the Tesla, very fortunate, of course, to not have a transmission tunnel, so you've got massive storage bins in there, and I do quite miss that, to be honest with you. In here, there's one sort of small one in the center console, and you've got the glove box, but other than that there's not really a lot. And this, of course, being a car that is 10 or 12 years old, though I've got some modern things in here like CarPlay, and it doesn't generally feel that old, there's nowhere to put my phone and nowhere to charge it, and that's quite annoying, to be honest with you. So you've got to have it on a phone mount, or you've got to have it in your pocket. It's a small price to pay, but it's something that I can find a bit irritating, to be completely honest with you. Keeping with the theme of driving around town, actually, while we're doing stop-start traffic, this is where the downfall of the 3-litre engine sort of comes in. It weighs 1.8 tonnes, this, so when you're hauling that around town, the fuel economy is generally pretty poor, to be completely honest with you. You're sort of getting 30s there and thereabouts, whereas on the motorway you can get 40s, sometimes even 50s. But I have to say, the biggest gripe by a country mile for me in this car are the cup holders. They drive me absolutely mad. Now, I don't know whether they were like this from factory. They may well have not been. They may have been a little bit better, but they've got plastic tabs and they're designed to hold bottles and cups and stuff in. And I get the whole idea of it is that, you know, when you've got a small bottle, it sort of sits in there and it's fine. When you've got a bigger bottle, it pushes out and so on. But the problem is it doesn't support it enough. It doesn't come up high enough. So when you're driving around with a bottle, I've got a metal bottle, and if you're driving on a country road, it rattles around like Katie Price's vibrator, this thing. You've never known anything quite like it. It's just constantly like the whole time. And it just, honestly, it drives you to the edge of reason. When you're on a motorway, absolutely fine. When you're driving around town, it drives me mad. We're on a country lane, and this is where the car falls down a little bit. It's designed for dogs and families and towing, this thing. So the steering is quite numb. It's very light, which is great, but at the same time you can throw it into a corner and not really know where the wheels are turning. And at the same time, the brakes, though they're good, they don't have much feel to them. They're actually quite wooden. So I wouldn't be going and taking this on a racetrack or anything anytime soon. To be honest, if you were taking a 530D on a racetrack, you deserve a round of applause anyway, because it does weigh slightly more than my house. So one other thing that does grind my gears with this car is the lack of touchscreen. Obviously on new BMWs, you can just go through and with your CarPlay, change your directions or change your song or whatever it is with one touch of a button. Here, you've got to go through, find a cursor, and it takes a while, and it takes your eye off the road, and I can find it quite distracting. Now, I guess you could argue that you shouldn't be doing that while you're driving, but it's not against the law. You know, you could go through and do it. It's a bit frustrating, really, and it does make it feel a little bit dated inside as a result. I suppose the one upside, though, is that I don't have fingerprints all over my screen. Now, a lot of people might be looking at this thinking, this is all well and good, but how much can I fit in the back? It's got a 560-litre luggage capacity, which, to put it into context, when I was towing the race car with it a couple of weeks ago, I was able to get all of my stuff in the back and pick up a couple of bucket seats, and it swallowed it all up without any issues, without even folding the back seats down, for that matter. And the good thing is as well with this car is it's got air suspension on the rear, so it's self-leveling, so it doesn't really matter what you put on the back of it, it will sort of level it out and it will be fine, and you'd never really know. Not entirely standard, this car. You may have noticed the wheels, they're F10 M5 winter wheels, which Taylor put on before I bought it, and I have to say, I think it sets the car off nicely. It looks really nice, the stance is good, and I'm happy with the aesthetics of it. There's not anything that I would particularly change. I've seen people putting front splitters and side skirts on. That's not really my sort of style, so I'm quite happy with how it looks, and I just think that the wheels set it off a little bit nicer. It's weird driving in silence as well. I'm not a fan of it, gotta be honest. I've got to have some music or a podcast on. Left alone with your own thoughts is a frightening place to be. I do like the fact though that like you've got so many modern things in this car, but also it feels quite old school. I like the fact that there's normal buttons to adjust the climate control, and there's muscle memory there. I don't have to take my eye off it. In the Tesla, if I wanted to change something like the mirror position, you have to go through into a menu, into a sub-menu, into another menu, sacrifice a goat, and then eventually you can change the mirrors on it. But here, I push one button, I push another button down and it goes down, I push another button up and it goes up. It's just so much more simple. Now we're on the motorway, I can talk about why this car is so brilliant, because it is an absolutely perfect mile muncher. When I got this car, I didn't really gel with it for the first few weeks. I actually messaged Taylor saying, look, do you want this back? Would you be interested in a swap? Because he was selling an Audi S4 at the time, and I'm glad I didn't, to be completely honest with you, because it is brilliant, this thing. Now I've driven some motorway miles in it and I've got to know it and its different characteristics, I really, really love it, and it soaks up a long journey with so much ease. This car is an exceptionally good motorway cruiser. It's a great way of chomping the miles up, and it's even better with a trailer on the back as well, because it doesn't feel like you've got a trailer on the back. Because you've got so much torque low down, you can put your foot down, go up to 70 with ease, and it sort of just goes, yeah, all right, fine. And then you're cruising in 8th gear, 1500 RPM at 70 miles an hour, and it's like, yeah, all right, fine. What I'm trying to say is, don't be afraid of these high mileage cars that are out there. You can get an absolute bargain. If it's been well maintained and looked after, go out, have a look, buy it, get yourself a bargain and bob around in it. You know, this car is the sort of thing that I'm not afraid to do the mileage in. I've had so many cars in my life where you buy them and they've done 5,000 miles, 10,000 miles, and you're like, oh, I don't want to put too many miles on it because it's going to ruin the value of it. This car's already done its depreciating, and it's done 180k, so it doesn't really matter what I do to it. I can take it up to 200,000 and it will still be worth the same money, and I plan to do that. I want to enjoy this car, have fun with it, use it for its intents and purposes, and just not worry about it, you know, because it costs 5 or 6 grand. I haven't got to sit there and think, oh, what if somebody bangs into it in Tesco car park, or like, you know, what if I have a little scrape of the bumper when I'm going through a low curb, or what if I curb one of those? It doesn't matter. It costs 6 grand. It's a cheap enough car. It's a brilliant daily. If you are thinking about buying a BMW F11 Touring, go out and buy one. I guarantee you will not regret it, but just make sure it's been maintained and looked after, and that you can be as confident as I was buying one of these. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been insightful for you as well. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Take care, and I'll see you on the channel again very soon.